Hey guys, hey, back with a little bit more once again. I think I made a video about this before. Maybe I didn't. I can't remember. Whatever. You guys take care of that. I just make them. We're going to talk here a little bit about cross-era play and whether anything like that is actually conceivable or is possible. This is one of those arguments that comes up a lot on Twitter, Facebook, other message boards, where you have sort of a divide in the baseball community. You've got some people who are convinced that the game is better today than it ever was before, a sentiment that I've seen repeated actually a lot over at least my lifetime. I remember reading similar articles about this as far back as 1998. You have other people who are convinced that the game was only better in the past and that the game has actually become worse as time has gone on. This is a pretty easy argument to make if you consider things like complete games and all those other things that don't exist anymore, batting average and stuff like that. The real question is it possible to compare eras, and is it feasible, and is it even worth doing? Usually this argument turns into like a shouting fest right away, right? So people who are in favor of this idea that the game today is better than ever before will start saying really crazy things like, the 27 Yankees would look like a varsity baseball team or something if they played in Major League Baseball today. People will say things like, Babe Ruth was actually just a slap hitter. I saw that one before. People will claim that pitchers from the past could not throw with any sort of speed. There's a Twitter account called something like Walter Johnson threw 92 or something like that, to try to like hammer this point home. There's a couple of things you have to realize, right? So first of all is that there is considerable evidence that velocity of pitches has increased over time, although I would not consider it to be convincing. There are people who will remind you that we have recently changed where we measure velocity. It used to be that you'd measure the velocity of a pitch as it crossed the plate. Now we measure it right out of the pitcher's hand, which, according to what I've read, can give you as much as an 8-mile-an-hour boost for what it's worth. Similarly, we talk a lot about spin rates today, and people will say, well, look at how crazy the spin rates are now compared to 10 years ago. The problem is that we don't have very much data, right? So we can't go back and see spin rates from 1900 or the 1910s or something like that. And it is very conceivable that spin rates, especially back then, were better than they are now, back when you had more legal trick pitches. There's a lot of possibility that goes on there. We can compare offensive statistics, but it's kind of hard to do so because of era differences. And I'll show you part of the reason why. So this is from a article that I've not yet published. I think this will be published right before this video comes out. It should, yeah. We'll show you a few things that are different that you have to take into consideration whenever you compare the game in different eras, right? You can talk about fielding, for example. There's no question that fielding has improved over time, right? Fielding percentages show this. Errors are always down. Every year seems to set a new record for the fewest number of errors. One of the reasons why you see this change is because of how fielders' gloves have changed. So this is from the 1901 Reach Guide. This is what a fielder's glove looked like, right? It's a finger mitt. I mean, literally. And I suppose that there was some padding somewhere. It had asbestos felt, which maybe is not so great for you, and a patent deep pocket. Can you find the deep pocket? It's right here, I guess, but it's not there. You could also get one of these fielder's mitts if you wanted to wear an oven mitt. I'm not sure which fielder would wear this, but apparently Lave Cross, who was the third baseman, used this particular model. Lave Cross, as I comment here, committed 29 errors in 1900, had a 945 fielding percentage. Now, he was a good fielder compared to other fielders of that year when you look at the fielding percentage. But when I look at this, I say, yeah, I'm not so surprised that he committed 29 errors. Now, compare that with this is just sort of a random photo I found of a modern Major League style fielder's glove, and you can see the difference, right? This glove looks like the gloves that I wear. In fact, I have one right here. This looks like one of these running gloves, right? That's what it looks like. I guess that one has a little bit more padding to it, and looks like it does have a pocket, whereas this one doesn't have any pocket at all. But it doesn't look extraordinarily different, right? At least there was a glove. If we go back far enough, we can go to the period where there were no gloves, right? This one, meanwhile, has this webbing, very large webbing. It's a tall mitt. Nobody has fingers that are quite that tall. And it allows you to get a lot of range and to get two balls that you couldn't get to otherwise, right? It's actually designed for a baseball player, right? Now, that's one problem. Here's the other problem, right, which is the bat. So this is an advertisement for a Louisville Slugger bat. And what you'll notice about this is that the handle looks like it's almost as thick as the barrel. Not quite. You can see that the thickness is not that uniform. This, though, is typical of the sort of bats that were used in 1900, 1901, etc. This is, again, from the 1901 Reach Guide. You compare that with this modern bat, again, another example I randomly found of a Louisville slugger, and you don't even have to read about it. You can see the difference. You can see how thin this handle is down here, right, as compared with this. People ask sometimes, why is it that nobody chokes up on the bat anymore? There are two reasons why, right? Number one is because your goal in batting these days is to try to get that pitch to hit the sweet spot wherever it is on your bat, right? And not necessarily just to make contact. This is one of the things that we fight about a lot. Back then, back in 1900, 1901, with a bat like this, you're probably not going to drive the ball very far, but you will try to make contact. And the reason why is because everybody's wearing this or this, right? So you can get base hits without having to drive the ball over the park. It's almost a completely different game when you take this into consideration. And then the other thing, of course, is that the thin handle, which was very much popularized by Ernie Banks, allows you to react quickly to pitches. And so if you're fooled on a pitch, you can swing quickly and you can foul the ball off, or in some cases, you can drive the ball. You can't do it with this. You can't do it with this hunk of wood. So here's the biggest comparison, right? This is from the Hall of Fame. I found this online. There was an exhibit at the Hall of Fame, at least back in 2001 when I last went there, where you could pick up bats from different eras and you could feel this difference. This is Babe Ruth's 1927 bat. Here's Roger Maris's bat from 1961. And this is Mark McGwire, 1998 bat. You can see home runs number 66, 67, 68, 69, and 70. And this is the Sammy Sosa bat from 1998. I think he used to hit number 68. Right, and you can see, so with these two bats here, when you compare them, they look very, very similar, and you can see, again, that sort of real thin handle, and you can see, you can't see necessarily the sweet spot. You just compare these. You don't have to compare with anything else, just compare it with your eyes, looking at the Roger Maris bat, and you can see the difference, right? The Maris bat is clearly a lot thicker down here, especially down by the handle. And you can see right away why you might want to choke up because down here might be a little bit uncomfortable if you're facing a fastballer. Whereas with this bat, if you choke up a little bit, I'm worried that the whole bat's going to snap in half on you. This, of course, the Babe Ruth bat, and who knows how many home runs he used to hit that, looks a little bit more like the Maris bat, I would say. Now, it doesn't say here from what I can see the weight of the bat. If you have tried to lift these bats up, you'll know right away that the Ruth bat is the heaviest of the four, and that Ruth was very, very well known for having a really, really heavy bat. Now, notice, though, when you look at this Ruth bat, that even here, the shape of it is different from the sort of bat that we see here, right? So that gives you sort of an idea of what we're talking about. When we're talking about that difference in sort of the quality of play from one era to the next, we really have to take that into consideration, right? Because if we don't think about, the fact that the equipment was so much different between one period of time and another, it's going to be impossible for us to make any sort of comparison. I mean, you have to keep in mind that the difference in the bats are, a very significant part of the game. We haven't even talked about like the difference in the baseball, for example, and the baseball was also much different back in those days. And that one is very famous and very well known. I mean, that's the thing. There's no real comparison of general talent levels, right? There are different things you can do today because of the way that the game is played, because of the way that the bats are and the way that the gloves are. There may be things you can do today that you wouldn't do otherwise. Now, here is a very final look at this. We'll take a look at this one I found. This is, I guess, from the PSA website, the old Heine Groh, professional model bottle bat. And you can see this bat, which was used in the 1920s, 21 to 31. And you can see sort of the way that this is designed. This today would be anathema. Nobody would use a bat like this, where you have this big old barrel of the bat that's really, really large. This is the opposite of having a sweet spot. You just have this huge area where you can hit, and then things go down here to this handle. In fact, we can go take a look at one of these auction sites. It didn't even go for that much money, right? Final bid, $866 for a bat that's today probably about 100 years old. You can take a look at that one. That's a Heine Groh model and see just how big it is and probably have an idea of how heavy this thing was. And in fact, I'm going to look here really quick and see if it tells us. Yeah, measures 33 inches. That's about right. And weighs 40.5 ounces. Let me, I mean, you can go ask your closest Major League Baseball player how heavy their bat is. I guarantee you it's not going to be no 40.5 ounces. So anyway, there you go. A couple of things to keep in mind, right? Next time you have this sort of discussion and debate, really, if you want to engage in cross-era play, I will argue that you have to assume that the equipment and that the ballparks and stuff all revert back to whatever era you're going to play in, right? I think it's something that can happen. You're going to have to go, however, with an assumption that the general basic level of talent behind the major leaguers has stayed the same. And, the equipment and the ballparks, the ball itself and stuff like that, that's where you really feel the difference. When you do that, you have an interesting story, right? If instead you're running around telling me that the 27 Yankees would lose 162 games today, we don't even have any place to begin talking. There you go. Talk to you later. Bye.